Folks, and welcome back to the Women of Water Get Real, a virtual summit where we're talking about where and why we are leaking women from the water career pipeline, how to keep women, how to get them back if they've left, how to just generally create more of an environment for women to have fantastic careers in the water space. And really, as we said in the title, they get real about some of the issues that are coming up. And we have a guest today that for today's this session who is really been immersed in this work. Until recently, she was the DEI officer for the International Water Association. So she's been doing a lot of work internationally on water and sanitation. And Siyka Radilova, did I pronounce that correctly?
Siyka Radilova. That's the correct one. Thank you for asking.
Fantastic. Siyka Radilova. And yeah, so thank you so much for being here today. And tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into this, what kind of work you've been doing in the water and sanitation space.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you, Kat, for this kind invitation. I'm really glad to be here and to speak with you today. My background, I am from Eastern Europe, so I'm a migrant in the UK, living in London for the last 15 years. I'm a woman and I'm a person with learning disabilities, so a lot of the categories that I'm advocating for, I'm an example for, and maybe that's why I started my work in diversity, inclusion, and equality. I have a master's degree in social anthropology at the University of London, SOAS. I've been working on a lot of diverse projects and programs for very different institutions that are not always related to the water sector. However, always the main thing in common in my projects was that I would always support underrepresented groups, communities, or individuals. I've been in the international development for a while, and I got a massive interest in working in the water and sanitation sector because out of SDG 6 is probably the most pressing one that we are pretty much behind of what we want to achieve by 2030.
SDG 6 is to make sure that everyone in the audience is clear on that. SDG 6 is,
well, access to, I believe, safe water and sanitation for everyone. So that's the Water and Sanitation Sustainable Development Goal, which in combination with Sustainable Development Goal 5, which is gender equality, which is pretty much my interest and expertise. That's how I got into the water and sanitation sector. I started work as a senior project officer focusing on the soft part of water and sanitation for International Water Association. So I'm former employer of this very prestigious institution working worldwide with probably 10,000 members in the water and sanitation field globally. I've been working with a lot of women in the sector. So the main idea and the main interest I have in this field is to support women in water and sanitation, to attract more women to join the workforce in water and sanitation, and also get more representation globally in from low and medium income countries. Also, not only women, but gender minorities.
Right. So, so we wanted to really dig into this a little more. And we've, this would be part of the sort of the framing discussions around, how do we think about women in water? And we had a fantastic, people will be able to watch a fantastic interview with Marsha Brewster from UN Association, who gave us sort of a history of, women at the UN and gender issues at the UN, water issues at the UN, and how they've intersected and changed over the years, of whether we're talking more about the communities being served, and especially in lower income communities that may not have sanitation and water access, and what that means for women, if they don't have privacy, a private place to go to the bathroom, or don't have a place to clean themselves, versus actually working within the water sector, and what are some of the issues facing women there. And for a lot of years, people talk about women in water, they were automatically thinking about, oh, those poor women with buckets on their heads, walking past tigers, and not being able to go to school because they got to go get water, as opposed to talking about women actually working in water.
These are the two focuses that are pretty separate, but at the same time pretty connected. And just for the 8th of March coming in just now, I just published a blog post that was focusing on how poor sanitation is affecting women, and how improved sanitation would empower women. So pretty much of women in the community that are lacking water and sanitation, that has a massive chain reaction of economically they are behind, also their safety and security. Women that don't have access to water and sanitation, they are exposed to possible sexual violence and harassment, being attacked by animals if they need to use the bathroom coming out at night, and also new mothers, lack of water and sanitation that could bring massive health issues, even losing lives. So this is the one aspect of why the importance of water and sanitation and access to those to all women universally. And what is the massive gap between developing countries and developed countries in terms of women accessing water and sanitation freely and women that don't. So pretty much this is a main thing, the lack of water and sanitation that separates. I think water is a very big factor in separating these two categories of developed countries and developing countries, the access of clean water and proper sanitation. And the other aspect, obviously, the women working in water and sanitation. And what do we imagine about women working in the water and sanitation? Well, we don't imagine much, because thinking about it, we mostly think of men working in this field. So there's always the stereotype that science, water jobs, these are jobs for men. You have to be strong to be on the field. You don't have the qualities as a woman to work this job. Even if you're interested in that, it's not domain for you. So better find a desk job. Or if you really enter the water and sanitation workforce, maybe you're gonna be a designer or work in accounting in a water utility, or an admin, and you still sit on your desk because you're not fit for going in the field. And unfortunately, there are reasons for that. There's not many conditions, especially in some utilities in developing countries and low and medium income countries. There's even no facilities for women to feel comfortable of getting into workforce. They're forced to get changed or to go to the toilet in the same places as men. They don't have the privacy, and very often this could be a reason for them to give up on carrying on. There's a lot of data that there's a massive percentage of women that if they eventually enter the water and sanitation workforce, there's a huge percentage that leave in the first year of their employment. Very often they don't feel comfortable being all surrounded by men, being patronized, and not given the same opportunities as men. Problem is there's no role models as well. We don't see many women in leadership positions, successful women that could attract young women that, okay, this is actually work for me. I see this very inspiring woman, and there's not just one, there's quite a few of those, so maybe I can fit as well. I think that's a very missing element, that we just don't have many role models. There's also some some stereotypes that yeah, this is not for women. These jobs are not suited. Women are not suited for women. You have to be strong. You have to be aggressive to succeed in this type of job. Also, there's not much flexibility, and there's a lot of women leave the workforce. It pretty much in every field, but in water and sanitation is particularly relevant because very often you need to be on standby 24/7. You have night shifts and so on. And eventually women, if they have families, if they have children, in many societies is still absolutely established that women are the main caregiver. And women, like if one of the partners of a couple needs to give up their work because of childcare or because of care of elderly, 90% of the cases that's going to be the woman. And when there's lack of flexibility and lack of conditions for women, mothers to stay at work, obviously it gets really hard to carry on for your children, for your elderly parents, for the sick, and be on the same level as men at the workplace. And even the few places that try to give equal opportunities, there's no discrimination, bias, and so on, which is very rare. It's one thing, gender equality, and another thing, equity, because you can be given the same opportunities as men, but there's biological differences. Even if you start in the same place as a young professional, as a male colleague, eventually you're gonna slow down because maybe you're gonna get married, maybe you're gonna get pregnant, maybe you're gonna have a baby, maybe you're gonna be breastfeeding. Later on in your career, you're gonna go through menopause. These are biological differences that are not really taken into consideration, even when there are equal opportunities given to both male and women employees. That biological differences are there, so there's no tailored.
Things that we're really trying to get to the heart of in this in this summit, and it keeps coming up, is people talk about retention and why are we losing women? And there are times when women may step away from what is a traditional career path and the traditional career timeline of what you do in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, where if women want to come back, if they don't have fresh skills and the latest certifications, or maybe their certification lapsed or something, there's no on-ramp to get back into the industry. So if women have small children, or had a rough childbirth, or other issues, health issues that may come up, and they want to come back into the sector, and they say, okay, now I'm ready to focus on my career, they're not getting those opportunities when they come back in older than others in their age cohort, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's already quite a few years lost in the time that you come out of the sector because, okay, I'm a dedicated mother, I cannot cope with both, I cannot be fully dedicated to my job and at the same time be a perfect mother, because also there's the social pressure in a lot of communities. If you're doing really well at your job as a woman, you might be considered of like, oh, this woman is just not really looking after her family. She's not a good mother. She's not a good daughter. So it's not only the pressure of like, we need to cope with everything at the same time, but it's also the pressure from the society. Actually, if you're doing well, that means that you're not doing something well at home, which is for some societies, this is a massive factor of like, yes, I think I can manage, but I wouldn't do it, because if I'm too pushy, if I manage to get into a better position very quickly, that means that I'm just not doing something right at home. Right. So, and also, even if very often you might not be able to progress because you're a woman, you're not going to be given the same opportunities for training, mentorship, and support, because it's expected that if you're not a mother yet, very soon maybe you're going to have to get out of work and have your baby, look after your children, and so on. And even in the cases that, okay, yeah, we provide training, we invite you to this conference, yes, you're given this opportunity. Some women just have to refuse those opportunities because, okay, I'm invited to this conference and I'm paid to go to this conference, but then I can't leave my baby that I'm nursing. That means that I need to take someone to look after my baby that probably I need to pay for. I need to make sure that there's facilities, childcare facilities, and then maybe I'm going to say no to this conference, or I'm going to say no to this training just because, yes, I know I'm given that opportunity, but I just can't accept
having
it.
that second chance later when the kids are old enough and the kids are going to school to be able to say, hey, okay, now, I'm ready to come back in. And, and you don't get that second bite at the apple, right? That the mentorship is for, when you're in your 20s, when you're in your early 30s, we have all
Exactly.
these, young professionals, rising professionals, which is still, you got to be under 35, but, it may be that women are prepared to come back in to focus on their careers a little later if they have children earlier, right?
Yeah, then I think here comes the confidence, and also the age gap as well, because very likely if you enter when you're, let's say, maybe in your 40s or later than that, when your children are already grown up, you're gonna be pretty much competing with people that are 20 years younger than you, and then maybe they will be more skilled in some more modern training, modern technology, things that you haven't used for quite a few years, and the world moved on in this time that you were out. So you need quite a lot of support, which I still don't see provided in many places. There are some good examples, but very often, yes, you're given the opportunity to re-enter, but then you don't really get the confidence that you have to compete with very young people that feel more confident, that are more skilled and more trained, and also they haven't lost that speed. So it's pretty much how companies really attract talents and attract professionals that want to re-enter after quite a long time. There's quite a few programs, but for re-entering and
Right.
supporting
programs.
Yeah, but this is pretty much, we're talking about the most developed countries. I haven't seen many of those happening in low and medium income countries, and also very often when women come out of the workforce for caring responsibility, there's this chain of like, first I'm looking after my children, then my children are grown up and they're more independent, but now I have elderly parents that I need to look after, or I have a sick relative, and it's all about the community. It's not only even my family, but I'm a woman and I have to step in to support my relatives that need help. So very often it's very much, once you leave, then you're pretty much having these caring responsibilities that don't end when your children are grown up. So yeah.
And you talked about some of the, in different countries around the world, and in countries like the US and Canada and UK, and have large countries that have a large immigrant population, and especially in the water space, we often have people from other countries who are come to the US, come to UK, come to Canada to get their degrees and continue working in the field, and maybe take with them some of the cultural aspects of how they see women, and women belong at home having kids, and you should be, why haven't you gotten married yet? You might hear more of that from people from countries that there is that, a much stronger bias towards women should be taking care of their husbands. Women should be taking care of their kids. Women should be home. And what are you doing in this office? Right.
Yeah, a lot of those. And I'm even thinking of women that are able to stay at work, even with young children or like a bit older children, but keep in the workforce. So I'm just thinking of a term called the global care chain. I don't know, are you aware of this? But something that I've done quite a lot of research on, and pretty much focusing on class and intersectionality and what type of women can actually stay in the workforce and have families. And the global care chain is that women that can actually stay at work are the women that can afford to pay other women to look after their children. So it's that we don't talk much about gender equality and spreading the roles, the caring responsibilities between male and female, but pretty much passing from one class to another, the responsibility between women. So this is something that I've been very interested in observing, researching, and I see that a lot, that a lot of women that can actually afford to stay in the workforce and progress in their career and get into leadership position are not necessarily the most talented women or the ones that can contribute most, but the ones that can actually afford it pretty much.
Right.
And it's also the substitute of them being away from the family is other women that come from, let's say that you're a water professional in, let's say, in London, in the UK, and you can actually afford to have a nanny who is coming from less developed country, and you pay this nanny a salary who pays a salary to a nanny in their own country, because, and it's again the role between women, which doesn't necessarily mean that when women stay in the workforce, that's because there's a gender spread, there's a good spread of the responsibilities between genders.
Right. You know, and this really came out in COVID, when suddenly not only were women and men staying home from work, but the childcare that they would normally have wasn't able to come because we were all in quarantine. And so a lot of women who typically were not taking care of their kids 24/7, you know, trying to work in their jobs and trying to take care of the kids, because, you know, husband's not taking care of the kids and this would take care of the kids. So when you have the two parents at home, or even if you had just one parent at home, you know, suddenly the woman's having to take care of kids when she was used to going to work and you know, connecting with other adults and doing all sorts of creative, you know, leadership roles, whatever.
Exactly.
And now suddenly she's also trying to figure out how to be a parent, perhaps for the first time.
Yeah, I think that was a period that it became really obvious that it's again the women that stay back in their jobs during the pandemic. It was, you would have both parents working from home, their children around because schools and nurseries are shut. But it's gonna be mostly, very predominantly, women will be taking a break, taking all their leave and taking all their holidays, and just because the children are at home and I'm the mother of the children and I have to look after them. It wasn't that obvious for men. Like a lot of men would just shut the door and like, okay, I'm in this room, I'm really busy, I have my work and I cannot look after the children. So there were so many cases around me that women just during the pandemic, the women that actually had work and were not made redundant or didn't lose their job, they actually had to leave it because they just couldn't cope with all the pressure of, I need to clean my house. Like, we don't have the cleaner anymore because we're quarantined. We don't have the nanny anymore. And we're just I just have to do everything. So I think that's where what I'm talking about, this global care chain, and again, the women being in charge of the caring responsibilities became very, very clear, this gender separation of the roles of men and women at home. Obviously, a lot of exceptions and a lot of great support from partners, but predominantly it was women looking after the children.
Right. You also mentioned that a lot of that yes, there are these issues facing women who have kids, and you also have women who don't have children. You have women who can't have children. You have women who focused on their career to the point that having children may not be an option. You have women who are gay or lesbian, trans, that or bi, that they might not have children. Some may, some don't. That again, those assumptions that a woman isn't going to be committed to her career because someday she's going to look for a spouse, or the pressure from family and society to, all right, enough of this engineering stuff, enough of this, you got to work a few years out of college. Now it's time for you to get serious about going and looking for a husband. Now it's time for you to get serious about, being a real woman and having kids, having a family, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of this, which is another extra pressure to also the women that don't want to, cannot have children, or they're not interested in having children, which that comes up to pretty much some different categories of diversity, inclusion, and equality of how are you accepted in the workplace as a professional and as a woman. And again, in some communities, you're not a real woman if you're not actually a mother, if you're not married, you have your husband who is the decision maker. And so again, very much depends on what geographical area we talk about. And here is the big separation between some traditional cultures that are still very much happening and some more developed cultures. But again, we have a lot of discrimination on gay and lesbian people as well at the workplace. We have a lot of discrimination of people with disabilities. So I think here is a bit of the intersectionality of how you can be discriminated as a woman, but also as a disabled woman, or also as a woman who is lesbian. So I think there's a lot of factors that we don't talk much about. We separate a lot of gender equality and all the rest of the protected characteristics, while they can be the same individual that can be discriminated on many different levels. So from one side is you're a mother and you have to take care of your children, so you cannot be really progressing in your career. And on the other hand is well, you're a woman, but you're not a mother, so what's wrong with you, pretty much. So there's no win. It's very much, you could be discriminated, whatever you do as a woman, you could end up being discriminated. So I think we very much need to focus on talking about it, going through pretty much encouraging every institution to have diversity, inclusion, and equality training, create awareness of bias and discrimination. Very often, people are not even aware that they're biased. There's this unconscious bias going around that, no, I'm not discriminative, I accept everyone, but culturally or just the way you grew up, everyone is biased. So bringing awareness and talking about that, I think this is a very important step forward towards eliminating discrimination and giving more equal opportunities to everyone, not only as of mothers or women, but people that are from underrepresented groups. Could be just people with disability, doesn't have to be even physical disability. There's a lot of people with invisible disabilities, learning disabilities that they need a little bit of support to thrive. They have this different and creative brain that could be used in such an amazing way if the employer is clever enough to use that. But it's no, they don't, these people just don't fit into so we just have to create more awareness and talk about that and make mistakes and correct our mistakes and just go forward. And this is really a journey. It's not going from point A to point B and then we arrived and we achieved gender equality and we achieved diversity, inclusion, and equality. We just have to keep progressing in that direction.
Say, look, the university programs are 50-50 in STEM, and therefore we can get rid of all the women in water and women in engineering and women in science programs. It's like, it's not just about the numbers, and it is across the entire lifetime. And you mentioned, in some of the neurodiversity, the invisible differences, not necessarily even disabilities, but just differences in abilities and some of the things that, and we have a session, in folks, if you're watching, you'll see we have a session really focusing on neurodiversity in water, and with women, a lot of women who might be a little different in terms of neurodiversity, are often very sympathetic, empathetic, care about the world, care about the environment, care about society, and have the things that are part of that neurodiversity might make them very good at analysis, very good at math, very good at going out in the field and being out in nature. I mean, it's just that this is a part of the picture, and often there is that intersectionality between women and neurodiversity, and neurodiversity in water and sanitation also. It's not necessarily, people don't always think of it as the sexiest working in sanitation, but as the people who care. And we have sometimes men who are neurodiverse hire women to take care of the social aspects, to do the communications for them, to do the social relationship stuff for them. I'm going to focus on my computer models, you handle that. And for women who already don't have those social skills or communication skills, or think just their brains work differently, that's even more pressure on women who may already be masking and modeling and trying to put on a front of looking like other people who are neurotypical as opposed to neurodiverse, right?
Well, I'm a great example of that. I spent pretty much all of my life masking my learning disability. So my learning disability is something that many people don't even know about. It's called dyspraxia, which is in the same group as dyslexia, but it's more of a spacious type of disability. And for many, many years, I would work really hard and really master it. Like, I think I even kind of master it, just to look and sound and act as someone who doesn't have this disability, and always aim to make it very invisible, to mask it. And like, I'm gonna just work 3 times harder than everyone else, but I'm just gonna have the same results in the end, or I'm gonna work in that way that I've been told that I should work. And I know that in my brain there's a better way that it's more efficient for me, and I'm gonna get to more results on that. But because this is not the way we work, I just have to go through this very difficult path for me to master it and to get better. And now I'm very happily talk about that really openly, because I just want to help people not to go through what I have to go through. And they don't need to mask their disability. Sometimes you need a very little tweak and very little support to actually thrive and get your creativity out and be absolutely great professional. Yeah, so this is very, very close to my heart. And
yes.
Yeah.
And it's important that we have those conversations, because I mean, just being a woman in the workplace, if you're facing any kind of opposition or bias or whatever, that is extra time and effort that that you have to put into your work, that can't put into home and family and everything else. Add to that any kind of, whether it's race, gender preference, neurodiversity, that all of these additional pressures, this additional stress, it's additional time and energy. And it's hard enough to get work-life balance, whether it's with husband and family, or whether it's just taking care of yourself. and then to add all those pressures, and it really has an impact on women's pathways. So I think it's really valuable that we talk about this. I hope you and Water will be talking about some of this and not just say, oh, let's put lactation rooms and childcare and the water utilities and that'll take care of all the problems. It all goes
it's
away.
really important to accept us as we are very complex creatures. We're not just one or another. We're so many different faces that so many things has to be taken into consideration, and people just have to talk and try to be curious and to learn more what could be in someone else's head or in someone else's life or someone else's circumstances. Just be more empathetic and more supportive. It doesn't take that much, and it could bring such massive benefits for both employers and employees.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that. We will make sure to link on the page here. So folks, if you're watching, please do type where you're coming from, what your experiences have been, what what thoughts came up for you. And I think you've been doing some work on, did a whole webinar series on gender and water, and we'll have a link to that on the page, correct?
Will do. Yeah, I'm going to send all that. I'm going to send a link to webinars I organized or moderated, and also blog posts. And yeah, I'll think of giving some resources to give some background to my work.
Fantastic. Well, Siyka, thank you so much for being here today. Really, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and for sharing all of your insights here and your tremendous work. And thank you for those of us watching here today for joining us. And please keep on coming back to watch all the different, many different perspectives and many different aspects of the complex creatures that we are, the so many different faces, many of them, we've got dozens of women involved in this summit. So you have a chance to see women in many different aspects of water and many different types of women with different life experiences and how that all comes together. So thank you so much for joining us, folks. Thank you, Siyka, for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was great talking to you.
Thanks so much for joining us for this extraordinary conversation, one of 45 extraordinary conversations we had as part of the Women of Water Get Real virtual summit, where we explored where and why women are leaking from the water career pipeline, how we can stop those leaks, and even bring women back to water. I hope that you will enjoy all of these amazing interviews. If you don't have a chance to watch all of them during the summit, you have the opportunity to join us with a power pack and get lifetime access to all the videos, as well as an opportunity to join us for 30 days in a brand new community where we will dig even deeper in live facilitated conversations about some of the issues that are facing women in water. Look forward to seeing you there. Please join us at watercitizen.org/women, watercitizen.org/women for more information. See you again soon.